Jesus Freak here. Now, both of these are the same thing. They are copies of the Book of Common Prayer that the Episcopal Church in the U.S. uses. This is an actual pew copy that I bought used at a local bookstore a couple years ago. It was used by a church in Lockport, which is one city away from here. And this is a new copy I bought shrink wrapped at Beacon just outside the city. Now, the Episcopal Church has their own company, I guess, that publishes these things, called the Church Hymnal Corporation. And they're printed by the Seabury Press. And I'm not sure, but I think it's an American printing. This was printed in the Netherlands on behalf of Oxford University Press. So I'm going to guess it's probably Royal Jongbloed. Correct me on that if you know better. Because it doesn't say. It only says... Where is it said here? I know I saw it here. But it says printed in the Netherlands. Anyway, there it is. They're not the same text block. They're page for page identical, which they have to be used together. Since the churches point out, oh, turn to page whatever in the prayer book. But they're not, they don't even use the same font. You can see that these are very different layout fonts that they used. The layout is exactly the same, but the fonts are completely different. Now, the prayer book is actually more than that. It is, as you see, called the Book of Common Prayer and Administration of the Sacraments and Other Rites and Ceremonies of the Church. And I believe this is a similar title that the Anglican one, the 1662 one that the Church of England, I believe, still uses. And this is basically, it evolved from that, but it evolved in a different direction. The 79 edition was the first one that introduced the modern English, as in contemporary English, although it did offer the old language in many cases as the option, as a second option. Now, editions of the Book of Common Prayer usually include a copy of the Psalms in them somewhere. And traditionally this has been, I believe, the Coverdale translation, as that's always been the traditional one that the Church of England used. But here they did a modern version that was loosely based on Coverdale. Now, This translation generally uses the standard capital Lord, capital God conventions that most English Bible translations use, which you can, if I can force this to focus. And yet in two places, I can't remember where the other, I think it's in Psalm 83. It says in the preface to the Psalter where the other place is. All right, back to automatic. But it's basically, an easy way to organize the church order. Um, let's see if I can find. Oh, they have the various. They have a prayer for every week that they use toward the start of the service. All right. Of course, the Great Thanksgiving tends to come up a lot in the Anglican tradition. As typical, Methodists do the same thing, although the wording is slightly different. It's almost the same wording that my church uses, except they say give our thanks and praise instead of give him thanks and praise. But that's just a function of, about 10 years passed between the time they adopted this in the Episcopal Church and the Methodist Church. All right, 361. 361. We'll show the difference in the typesetting. As you see, it's the same text on both copies, although it's hard to see with even holding them both up like this. But the font's different. In fact, they're so different that while the 1979 edition that I'm holding here, the Seabury press version, has lowercase numerals for page numbers. The Oxford edition has uppercase numerals. Now, the Oxford edition also adds something. Apparently, in 2007, they added a supplement at the back that contains the Revised Common Lectionary. So there are some differences, but it's just the very back part. And for the most part, these are compatible. If you need to use a Book of Common Prayer for something, this Oxford one and this Seabury one are, for all intents and purposes, identical. By the way, I occasionally do attend a service at a local Episcopal Church. They actually use a 1977 edition of the Book of Common Prayer that says Provisional Book of Common Prayer. It's, again, it's basically the provisional edition, what became the 1979 book. And I guess it's because, they already had it. Why buy new copies? And probably next time I go there, I'll have this with me, just because. I kind of wish, you could find other, prayer books and hymn books in this kind of size. Jesus freak out.